and get yourself this copy, Climate Change Discourse in Namibia. And it's written by Gerson Sendana, so that's me. And so, ladies and gentlemen, let's get started. Okay, so thank you for joining me. Like I said, today we are going to focus on climate change. We're also going to look at the issues of greenhouse gases that I told you. So previously we looked at the issue of greenhouse gases, and I told you previously we only spoke about carbon dioxide and methane. But today we're also going to look at other greenhouse gases. We add on carbon dioxide, methane, and also CFC, chlorofluorocarbons. Some of these things. Man-made, like CFCs and CFCs in most cases. So, but I mean there are many others. But let's just look at all these things and see what best we can do to make sure that we protect our environment. So I told you previously, there are people out there who think climate change is a hoax, or somehow climate change is not a reality, or it is the idea of the worst, or the ideas of the worst, because the West is fully developed, and so as a result they don't want developing countries to develop. So as a result, so they want to shove these things down our throats so that we don't develop here in Africa and elsewhere, especially in the third world countries. But without all these conspiracy theories on your own, what do you think the issue of climate change is? So do you think it's real? You think it's not? So whatever you think. But I'm going to argue from a scholarly point of view and tell you, but there's a reality of what's happening around the world. I told you previously that this space we have is made up of different gases. So we spoke about how nitrogen occupies 70% of all the gases that you see in the space, and oxygen only 21%. So you can pretty much see it's very small compared to nitrogen. So, and then you also have other greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, methane, and CFC, or chlorofluorocarbons, which are human made. Now, what does it tell us? So what it tells us is, if you only have 21% of oxygen in the atmosphere, then what does it mean when you have high concentration of methane in the atmosphere? So that means it leads to a reduction, or high concentration of carbon dioxide, high concentration of methane, or high concentration of CFC will lead then to a reduction in the oxygen level. So once you have oxygen level reducing, what does it mean for the people? What does it mean for humanity? This is why this issue is very important for us to talk about. So when we talk about climate change, we're not only just looking at big industry, releasing carbon monoxide up in the atmosphere, but we're also looking at at small scales what people are doing, what we can do as individuals to make sure that we reduce the emission of some of these things like CFC or carbon monoxide or carbon dioxide, or whatever you name them, that pollute, that adds to high concentration of these gases in the atmosphere, so as a result leading to high temperature. So that's why we have to take these things seriously. And I told you, so high concentration of these greenhouse gases, what does this mean to the world? What does it mean to humanity? For a lot of people, maybe it means nothing. For a lot of people, it probably maybe doesn't mean anything, for as long as you have what they think water. So you still have maybe oxygen out there in the atmosphere. For as long as we breathe, then it means nothing. But this is what it means. If you have high concentration of methane and CFCs and all these other greenhouse gases such as carbon dioxide, it will lead to reduction in oxygen. So when oxygen is reduced, what is the impact on humanity, on people? So there are a lot of impacts. Once you reduce oxygen, a lot of things happen. So some of these things, we don't need to go into the nitty-gritty of it, but just to tell you that, so it will have a serious repercussion on humanity. Okay, maybe without fear-mongering or scaring you, let's just look at what is it that we can do to make sure that we avoid some of these things, or what are the impact. the impact is that apart from humanity, getting sick, or apart from, people experiencing low in oxygen, so as a result they can't breathe properly. So there are a lot of things that can happen when there's a reduction in oxygen. So my focus is on what is it that we can do. For example, the CFC. This you get in a fridge, like with a cool in the cooler or fridge, or refrigerators. So you get this, it's used in there, so we can minimize that. And then maybe instead of using an aircon in your room, then we can encourage people, for example, instead of using aircon, maybe you open the window so you can get fresh air. Now apart from that, what is it that we can do? Maybe reduce the stock in terms of the numbers of cattle that we own, because what happened is, cattle or cows are the biggest methane producer. What happened is, a cow has 4 chambers, like in the stomach of a cow. There are like 4 chambers, and that's where you have these bacteria and couple of, if you understand biology, this way you get the enzyme and other things that produces it for them to crush, for them to ferment whatever grass has been grazed. So you would need this kind of enzyme or bacteria, to tend this, and as a result, this is leads to methane and other things. So I don't want to go into the science of it, but that's exactly what we're talking about. So all these things contribute to the issues of climate change. So as a result, because of lack of oxygen, people are gonna get sicker, and the government will be forced to spend more money on building hospitals. Instead of building schools, now the government will be forced to build more hospitals. Instead of investing money in paving new roads, creating new jobs, new manufacturing industries, or new manufacturing plants, now the government will be forced to build more hospitals because people are getting sicker. You see, that's the danger. That's the indirect economic repercussion. And you also have, apart from people getting sicker, some of the repercussion is that you will have high temperature. Now with high temperature comes with a lot of issues. What about people in poor countries who depend on subsistence farming? Now their plants are just gonna burn out. So you have high temperature. If it exceeds, for example, if you have a temperature going up to over 150 Fahrenheit, or over 40 degrees Celsius or 40 degrees Celsius, what does that mean? How does that affect then ordinary people? The poorest are going to suffer. Apart from the government spending money on building more hospitals, the government will also be forced to spend money on on buying food to feed these people who can no longer feed themselves because the climate has changed. Now the river you see. Now we got the river. For some people, for as long as we have the river, so what do we care about climate change anyway? Because we have the river, we have the water. So if you want, so we can use this water for green irrigation. Yeah, we understand, but this river can dry out. There are certain part of this river. If you go down that side, if you go down that way, yeah. So there are certain areas where you have new islands developing. The reason why this dry island developing is because of climate change. So the high plateau, the Bia Plateau in Angola, for example, I'm standing next to the Kavango River behind me here. So if it doesn't rain properly in the Bia Plateau in Angola, so what will happen? All these countries down the stream, Namibia, Botswana, will be affected. So what will happen to the ecosystem? Can you see how the chain of things are affected because of the issues of climate change? That's why we can reduce the stock, especially when it comes to animals or the number of cows that we keep, reduce methane, or we should develop some form of technology that can then process this methane into something else, or replant, have more trees. We got all these plants all over here. Now you can see behind me, there are a lot of plants. So all these plants are good to absorb more carbon dioxide. Now human beings exhale carbon dioxide, and the trees takes carbon dioxide, and we take oxygen from the trees and we inhale. So that kind of symbiotic kind of natural relationship can continue. But for that to happen, we really need to educate the people to understand the need of these things. And otherwise, if we're not going to do something about it, so we'll have a serious repercussion. So ladies and gentlemen, the river that for some, there's a river, so as a result, it's not a problem. Yes, we got all this water. flowing down to Botswana, going that way. So what you see on the other side over there is Angola. This is Angola, ladies and gentlemen, Kalai. Technically, if you just cross here, so that you see that's Kalai over down there. It's a small town in Angola, opposite Rundu here in northeast part of Namibia. So for some, as long as we have water, so there's no need to conserve the environment, because they think we can use this water to water the irrigation. But I'm telling you, I mean the green scheme project, but the issue is, if we do not do something to protect the environment, all this water will just dry out, and then one day we wake up, the land will look like this. So the land will look like, but open space, the river will just dry out and we'll have nothing. So this is how the land gonna look like if we do not protect the environment. So from what you see now, here is dry, but if we protect the environment, something gonna happen. What is it that gonna happen? A lot gonna happen. So you will have the water. The river is here, but we don't do anything about it, so everything will dry out. It becomes part of just land where people come and dump, where people come and just have party and do nothing. So when we talk about climate change, ladies and gentlemen, we're not only looking at the environment here, we're not only looking at the water, we're not only looking at the land, we are not only looking at the sky, the clouds, we are not only looking at the trees, we are also not just looking at the big industries that burn fossil fuels, or the cars. We're not just looking at the cars. No, we are also looking at a lot of things. So that's why, ladies and gentlemen, please go to the subscription box and link, subscribe, share this video, comment. Let's debate, let's protect our environment. Let's do the best that we can to make sure that we protect the environment, because this is the only place that we have. If we don't protect it, it won't protect us. And the next thing that's left is humanity will be disintegrated. Thank you.